I was in Frankfurt. I knew nothing about Frankfurt. Frankfurt is the most densely populated area in Germany for crime. I didn't know that outside of the Hauptbahnhof, which is the train station, it's essentially the red light district of Frankfurt. It's lined either side with things that would be in the red light district. Weirdly enough, there was one hotel in this red light district, and it was the cheapest hotel. So obviously, I booked my time staying in this hotel whilst I was with Eintracht Frankfurt. So I was there for about a week in this hotel. I get into the hotel, I get my keys, go up to my room, and I open my door to my room, which is also the smallest room. I got stitched up with the room because obviously it was the last room and it was so cheap. I opened it up, there's a guy in there, he's having a smoke, and that's my room. I then go downstairs and say, hello, what's happening? And they say, oh, it's fine, we'll get him out. I then put my bags in after he's left. I go back downstairs and I say, have you got another room? I'll pay extra. They say, yeah, sure, okay, we'll get you another room. I paid extra, go back into my room. Guess who's in my room?
The guy.
Old mate's still having a smoke. I then go to my room. Thankfully, it's all good. But in the following days, I wake up to police sirens downstairs in the street. Turns out there's a gunman on the loose. There's a whole brigade of police going into all of the red light district area. About 40 minutes later, by the time I need to go to training for the trial, I'm stressing out. This is like my third day of training with Eintracht Frankfurt. I'm like about to make a call to the coach saying, sorry boss, I can't make it because there's a guy with a gun in my street. Thankfully, they caught him. I run to training and I thankfully make it on time.
When I was in Cardiff City, I was living in the digs at the time. It was, I'd say, the worst part of Cardiff. I remember me walking on the way to the gym. We just finished training, so we'd go training in the day. So we'd train in the morning, go to the gym, train again, and then we'd get driven home on the bus. We'd get back on like 5, so we'd be dead. I'd be then walking to the gym through this park, and I'm there thinking, right, I've just been told that there was a stabbing in the park the day before, and I'm there walking through it. In my mind, I'm thinking, firstly, what am I doing? Secondly, I also need to get my gym session done. So the discomfort of me, do I just take a different route and go down a different route? Or do I just deal with the discomfort and just like kind of sprint through one way and try to get to the gym as quick as possible? Getting dark by like 4 or 5 p.m. as well. So you're constantly checking your shoulders.
I was in the city where I ended up living. I legitimately had no money left in my account to book a hotel for this night. And I was waiting because my club, who I was trialing with, were meant to pay for my hotel as well. So I didn't know where I was going to stay. This is at midnight. So I'm waiting to then get paid from my boss, who doesn't pay me. He literally tells you, service off. I can't call this guy. And I need my money to pay for this hotel. I'm then sussing out places on the street. I'm looking here and there, trying to find a good place. Okay, that bridge is safe. I've seen people sleep under it before. We could share a bed. No, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. But I was looking all these places where I could sleep for that night because I had no money in my account. And I wasn't planning on transferring my money either. I was in a hotel reception at this time and I was like trying to bargain with them. They said it was like 73 euros for the night. And I was like, I play for the club in this town and I was trying to like work out some sort of deal. I ended up staying in the hotel. I needed a good night's sleep because the next morning I had a trial with the team who I ended up signing for. Do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes we get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode. Welcome back to this episode of the SCULPTED podcast. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by the second returning guest, Liam Miller. Now, I think the last time we spoke with Liam, I was in Budapest, which was a crazy time for me. And Liam is also going through quite a crazy time with moving to a new city, a new part of the world. And it'll be a very, very good conversation today talking about discomfort. Now, Liam, if you wanted to give a quick little update on what your situation is and all the discomfort that you're dealing with right now, that'd be awesome.
So guys, people who firstly don't know me, my name's Liam Miller. I'm a footballer first, and then I also do social media content creation and have a business on the side of that as well. Going into my life and what I've been through, you can look at that all on my social media channel, Professional Diary, and then also my food channel, which is a Professional Food. But I have just moved out to Australia to pursue my football career. So I'm living in England, but I've just moved out about 2 weeks ago to Australia. Season started yesterday out here in Perth, and I moved out 18 years old, living by myself at the moment, still trying to find a place.
What was your debut like yesterday?
He knows what it's like. made my debut in the NTL in Western Australia yesterday. Played 90 minutes in 33-degree heat, which I don't think I've ever played in before in my life. Like it was hot. Don't get me wrong, I started cramping like last 10, which I haven't cramped in, I don't think, really that much ever. Um, and yeah, I made my debut, scored. We drew 2-2. We were losing 1-0 in the first. Um, like I think it was first 2 minutes, and then managed to get us back in the game about 20 minutes on, and then we were up around 2-1 at half time, and then unfortunately drew 2-2 in the second half. So yeah, it was a good first game. We'll see how the season goes. I've still got a lot more I need to be doing. It wasn't uh one of my best games. I can still improve a whole lot.
Yeah, awesome. Now it's a difficult thing to firstly move overseas by yourself. Secondly, go with so much uncertainty. Then additionally, play football where it's kind of an awkward one because your life doesn't depend on it, but the whole reason why you're there is dependent on your football success, right? You could have a few bad games and you're not starting, then you don't get paid, then guess what? You can't afford to live there anymore. And it's a very uncomfortable and very tight thing that footballers have to work through, especially in semi-professional football when you're only getting paid per start, and especially for Liam in Perth, it's not an easy league to get into right away because Perth is also a lot of the players from Perth Glory, the professional team in Perth, often go to an MPL team, right after they retire from professional leagues. So it's not an easy league. I wouldn't say it's the most competitive league in Australia. I'd say that Sydney and Melbourne are, but that's not to take away from the fact it's still a difficult place to enter. So, uh, all credit to Liam for doing that. And then additionally, being away from his family. Also, Perth is not a familiar place for Liam. Perth is a place that, for many people in Australia, is untouched and unknown, for myself included. Like, I don't,
Yeah,
I don't think that most Australians would classify Perth as, you know, something that we're going to go to just out of the whim. Like, if I was to say I'm going to go to Queensland or if I'm going to go to the Gold Coast from living in Sydney, that's kind of normal. It's still a fair trip, but Perth is like, that's a different country.
yeah, I can't lie. Before I came here, I didn't even have a clue what it looked like. Like
Hmm.
in regards to the city, yes. I mean, I'm in the city right now. I still don't have a clue what it looks like.
Yeah,
But yeah, my Wi-Fi isn't the great. My Wi-Fi isn't the greatest. I don't know if you can hear me, but
it's all good.
we'll manage. Okay, cool. Um, so yeah, the city it's a nice place actually. It's quite nice. It's something like I'd say it's not really that Melbourne's, but it's very more chilled, like kind of Brisbane vibe.
Yeah, okay. But I think Brisbane's more busy, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I think it does get busy. I think, but it's a Sunday as well, so I haven't really been out too much.
Yeah, okay. Now, quick question, Liam. So, thinking about the theme of this episode being discomfort, do you know where you're staying tonight, tomorrow, the next day, and the next day after that?
Well, tonight I do, tomorrow night I don't. And then yeah, I haven't really got a clue to be honest. Yeah, I need to be on the search for a place. I've been on the search for the past week and a half, trying to find a place to stay. Uh, and it's hard living on your own, trying to in a different country as well, trying to find a place. Being 18, a lot of people don't really want to rent a place to you as well, since they think you're not reliable paying rent. They think you're immature. They think you're all these things, and only if I could show them like what I've done or those past experiences I've been through to show them like I'm capable to be able to rent a place,
Mm.
then um, it's very uncomfortable to not have a place to stay for the time being, maybe 4 to 5 months, 6 months. Me being here, we'll see how long it is. But yeah, at the moment, I don't have a place, and I don't know where I'm going to be over the next few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a very scary thing. Now, when you first let me know that you were going to Perth and going for, essentially, there was uncertainty in that when you're going to Perth because you haven't met the people who arranged it for you. You don't know if the club's are going to deliver on what they say. there's a lot of uncertainty in there, right? You're buying a ticket to go overseas with
Mm.
a promise that could be false. The riskiest thing that I've done with something like that was when I was in Germany. I had an agent who I'd never met before. I trusted him a fair bit because we'd spoken on LinkedIn quite a lot back and forth, but I'd never actually gotten a trial of him before. And he told me that he used to play for a club in Berlin, and he was like, you know what, they're looking for a keeper. You should head down. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll give it a go. He told me that they'll give me accommodation. They've got accommodation for me to stay at and everything like that. And I ended up going to Berlin. It was it was okay. It was very it's not scary, I'd say, but it's very uncertain. And what I mean by that is I get to the train station and I've been told that someone's picking me up at some random time. Like, this is not acceptable in any other scenario than football for some reason. Like, this is just crazy. And you would have gone through the exact same thing. And then you go get picked up by some random guy. He takes you to his house. And then you go to his house and there's a bed that's probably not even made. And there's some windows that's probably broken. And everything is just, you get there and you're thinking, is this guy here to kidnap me or to get me to trick?
I think you've been through a lot more work experiences with that than I have. In the aspect of trying to find a place and being on the go, and like this is my first kind of experience of that. I'm also like when I was at Cardiff City, I kind of knew in a way whether it would be I'd be living in a hotel that I'd paying for or a club's paying for, even though they didn't really pay for it and they should have been, but that's a different story. Um, yeah, or like being in digs. I know I'm in that place for a certain amount of period. Um, but yeah, you've been kind of you book your flight and you worry about the rest later. So props to you for that.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think that I probably have one just outrageous story where I just trusted this agent who then told me that I got to then stay with this guy who's then going to take me to training and everything like that. And it was actually like such a random. I was in some broken down apartment. My door, like had a hole in it. And the only way that I knew that I was in the right place is that the door had the logo of the football club. And I'm thinking, well, that would also be a great ploy for a kidnapper to make me feel safe. Yeah, just put the logo of the club on my door so that I feel safe, and then he can kidnap me. So yeah, great story if that was a kidnapper, but thankfully we weren't on some Jeffrey Dahmer stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's very uncertain. That's walk me through what it was like in Cardiff, because in Cardiff that's a big club and it's also separate from where from my recollection when I was speaking to your brother about this, your family moved to Plymouth area, right? And then you ending up in Cardiff.
yeah. So I moved over to Plymouth because my brother was playing there. He was playing for Plymouth Argyle at the time. I moved over there when I was about 14. So I lived there for about 2 years until I turned 16. Um, at the time when I was 14, I was on trial at Plymouth actually. So
Yeah.
I had like a 2-3 week trial there. They said I wasn't good enough. Then eventually after that, got a trial at Cardiff City for one game. I was 15 at the time. Turned 16 the following year, but I was playing with the under 18s at 15 years old. Had a game. They really liked me. The second game they asked me to come back for, and they offered me a 2-year scholarship after that second game for me being 15 with the under 18s at the time. Um, and because I was 15, I couldn't sign my 2-year scholarship until I turned 16 the following year. So I would, yeah. So when I was at the time when I was going to the games and stuff, I would just be staying in the hotel. And to be fair, the club did pay for the hotel when I was going on trial. Um, but again, once I was turning 16, I was still to go up for training after they offered me the 2-year scholarship. And from there, it was kind of just out of my own pocket traveling because it was like a 3-4 hour drive to go to Cardiff City from Plymouth. And then I would be staying in hotels overnight, some nights where I'd have to pay for myself. So, yeah, from there, when I turned 16, I actually had to go into digs. Originally, my parents were going to move with me. They had a deposit ready to go on a house. And then some FIFA ruling from England to Wales said that, no, you can't move in with your parents because I don't even know what it was. I had to go into digs because this
It's
fecal will like
distance. So I think it's because if your house essentially is in a certain radius outside of the city, you then have to either go into their facilities like digs, because this is the same in Germany. If you live too far outside of the city, you have to go get you have to live in digs or the equivalent in Germany. Um
hmm.
or your parents move, but then sometimes they just prefer to the kid to be in their facilities.
Yeah, and that was a weird one because like my parents were ready to move, we were ready to go, and I would have been a lot more comfortable. I feel like if I were there, 'cause again, I'm still 16, but yeah, ended up having to go into digs with this family. There were two other boys from the team living at that place. It was with a woman and a guy, like married couple, um, and yeah, basically the guy was a chef, so he was a chef, but I mean, was it healthy chef? I don't know. And you know me from my Instagram and stuff, those kind of things. I was living there, in a small little bedroom, kind of little, just caved in, literally my bed, and I couldn't even walk around. It was literally, it was like my bed. Then I had a screen as well. I had a PlayStation at the time, so I had a place, not that I play anymore, but I had a PlayStation, and that's what I'd be doing. I'd get home from training, go to the gym, play PlayStation, eat food, sleep. Like that would be kind of my thing. And did I like it? No. But at the end of the day, it was kind of probably a distraction from the situation I was currently in, was just playing game. Um, and just being bored out of my mind as well because I was away from family. I did those things. So the discomfort as well of living in that situation where the guys cooking me burgers and chips and fried foods, and I like to eat healthy and cook my meals. And before that, I actually did start my Instagram, professional. Oh, it was called Liam's Eats or something at the time, where Instagram was just still photos. So um, I was already on that healthy food journey, and then I've gone to Cardiff and he's feeding me these burgers and chips and those kind of things. And yes, they were freshly cooked; they weren't packet meals. It's still not what I want to be eating when I'm training and playing at a high level professional championship team.
It's not an easy one, and we've had this conversation ourselves where living with people, it can be a very awkward situation because you only have some level of control because you're under their house. When you're under someone's household, it just makes tensions very, very like stiff because you can do one thing and it just the narrative kind of turns and you just become on their bad side and they just see you living in their house.
I, well, I mean, story. I didn't tell you about this one, but um, when I was actually leaving the club, and it was on the point of me about to leave, and the club was speaking to the guy saying, "What's going on? Like, why is not it not working out, or whatever." He's then blaming me, saying I'm not getting along with the other two boys in the house, saying he doesn't even speak to them at the dinner table, he doesn't even do this. Meanwhile, I'm the new kid in the house because they'd been there for about a good 6 to 12 months. Them two were in the same room as well, so they were in a room together. They played PlayStation together. They went out to the gym together. So they knew that they were best friends pretty much. And then so I was like talking and stuff. You know what it is like when you get into know people. It's like not full on conversation yet.
Yeah.
So he's then blaming me like, oh, he doesn't even interact with the boys. He doesn't do this, and he's telling that to the club. And I'm there thinking, what? Oh, what's he saying? Because at the time, my parents were saying like, Liam doesn't feel comfortable there, like communicating with the club. That like, Liam doesn't feel comfortable there. He's not getting these types of foods and this and that. And then he's gone back to the club and just kind of blamed it on me. But that's again the discomfort thing. And then the last few weeks of 2 weeks of me, 3 weeks of me staying there, it was just kind of me just like avoiding him. And yeah, it's avoiding him in a place I'm staying.
That's awkward. That's awkward.
Yeah, it's hard as well. But even more so, I don't know if you want me to go into the other story. Um, but
Well, I think we'll get there.
yeah,
I wanna kind of go through a few other things with discomfort. I think that one of the biggest uh something that's shocking in a way that you probably don't understand if you haven't been in a situation like myself and Liam, where when you are at the airport and you're saying goodbye to your family. Now, you've just gone through this. Uh, it's it's not an easy thing to do, and it's very uncomfortable. Now, when you first flew over from the Gold Coast to London, you were 14, right?
Yeah, yeah, so Plymouth, yeah.
So you was that by yourself, and you immediately
So,
family
so,
after that?
so yeah, so I flew, originally it was by myself, so I flew from the Gold Coast to Plymouth, or to London, and then drove down to Plymouth. But yeah, I flew to London and met my dad at the airport. So my brother and dad were already situated down in Plymouth. They already had an apartment. So it wasn't moving that time. Honestly, it wasn't hard. I left my mum here and then I was going to my dad. So
Yeah.
it was like, at the end of the day, it was kind of similar. I think the hard part maybe would have been um, going into a very smaller house, whereas on the Gold Coast, I had a massive house, and the houses here are so much different to what they are in England. So maybe that was a harder part. I didn't really struggle. I think only thing I struggled with was just having to get my head around going to school and it just being like dark and just a bit miserable. Um, Even though that still wasn't for me, it wasn't too bad because I would go to the gym before I'd go to the gym before school. I'd get back home, shower, go straight to school. Then I'd go straight to goals after training, after school, and then I would go to my training after that, after the goal session. For people who don't know what goals is, it's just like where you can go, just do like whatever you just pay like £5 or whatever, and you go onto like a little astro pitch. But yeah, it wasn't like sorry, my mind was always just occupied at the time. Um, and I was more focused on just like my health and losing weight and going through that journey. So I think that's probably what was occupying my mind at that time. And seeing my brother succeed as well in Plymouth was just such an amazing achievement, like seeing him play against the likes of Fulham and those kind of things. So it was cool. Um, but the feeling of leaving your family, it's when you're at the airport and you're standing there and then you leave and you walk through the um
Just
what's it called?
the gates, the gates.
Just yeah, through the security, and then you're thinking, have I just made the right decision? Like I was thinking that when I've come here, I was thinking, have I just made the right decision of coming to Perth, leave my family? At the end of the day, I could just be playing football in England. I could just be doing non-league football, getting paid maybe similar to what I'm getting paid here. Um, and I'm living with my family. I'm not living anywhere uncomfortable. I'm not paying for myself. I'm still under my mom's roof. I don't have to pay any rent. Here I have to pay rent. I have to pay for my own food. I have to live off myself the age of 18. Um, and so that's all going through your mind. Have I just made the right decision? You never know. You'll never know if you staying there might have been different. If you going here might have been different. You'll see it in 50 years. But even if you were to go back and change it, you can't. So it's like it's a weird, yeah. It's a tough decision. But I'm sure you've had that same feeling of walking through those gates.
Bro, it's horrible. It's horrible. And uh, how do you rationalize it? Because there's so many thoughts going through your head at that time as well. It's like, hmm, is this ticket even worth it? Am I actually going to be able to, continue doing what I thought I could do? Haven't even tested the waters. Is it worth the sacrifice of me even contemplating it? Because as you just said there, you could have stayed home in England where there's barely any risk, there's barely any, things that are changing. There's a whole less responsibility on you when you're with your family. Everything's so much more relaxed. Is it worth it to actually go to another country for a very similar deal in terms of football wise, but for so much more uncomfort? And comfort is
I think that's the word, isn't it?
yeah,
Some comfort is the big word.
comfort's nice. We want
Because
to be
if you're comfortable, you ain't gonna make the change. You ain't gonna take the step. We're working on something at the moment, aren't we? And we could just be comfortable and just focus on the things we were doing beforehand and just stick with that. But if you you don't take the step to be uncomfortable, you're not going to have those little thoughts of, am I going to make it? Is this going to be successful? And is this going to work? But you're going to have those thoughts. But if you don't have those thoughts, the big thing won't happen. The bigger picture won't happen. You'll never know, and you'll never see that. But comfort is it's something definitely. For me, I think I've never wanted to be comfortable. I've never had that feeling of, even today, it's my rest day, but I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to sit there and do nothing. I know you're on a different one because you work so hard throughout the week, but like I like to just be busy. I like to just be keeping myself working, and I don't want to be comfortable in one situation where I stay like that for the rest of my life. I want to be on a, it's not going to be all up, but I want to be on somewhat of an upward trajectory for most of my career and my life. It's going to be like that, but it's not going to be a straight road, and that's where the comfort comes in. People like to be comfortable, and especially in this environment here, in not Perth, but Australia in general, comfort is a big thing that a lot of people enjoy.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to being comfortable, I think that there's a common trend for people who are comfortable. And I think that majority of people in Western countries who are privileged enough to have comfort, because also comfort's a privilege. Comfort is a big privilege. And I'd say that most Australians are pretty comfortable. Of course, there are some that are living uncomfortably, but the people who are living comfortably are typically the rule. And now what I mean by that is that they are the average. But if you want to be above the average, you have to be uncomfortable at times. And I'd say that to be above the average, you have to be uncomfortable the majority of the times, because you can also be uncomfortable and be at the low end, because you can be the exception quite often. And I'd say that you and I are quite often the exceptions to any rule, because one, we're the ones to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions. And hopefully in what we're working on right now, this will be a case study for it. And I think that even you moving to Perth is a case study to being the exception to the rule. I don't know how many kids at the age of 18 are moving countries by themselves for something that is on paper very similar. What is it worth you actually doing that? Well, to be the exception to the rule, you have to do something different. And quite often, the people who do something different are rewarded for it. And sometimes the people who are doing something different may actually be punished for it. But the people who continue to risk those things and be uncomfortable, at the end of the day, will end up on top. And you're building those case studies to yourself. You're proving it to yourself. And we're both going through that. And we're also, I'm 19, you're 18. We're young. We've done a lot more.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say age as well. With us being so young, even people in their 30s, you're still quite young in the aspect that, yes, if you have kids and a family, you can't take as many risks and those kind of things. But why not take the risk? Like, you have one life, you have only a certain amount of time to do these things. So when I have kids and when I have a family, I'm not going to be able to have that luxury of moving overseas, chasing a dream job, or doing those kind of things. Being such a young age that I am now, I can go and do whatever I want. And I think going back to the kind of Australia thing, with the comfort of the privilege of comfort, um, it's a kind of a comfort crisis. I went to America in January, and even there, I went on a few different like open trials, like LA Galaxy and some USL teams. They weren't really open trials, but the kids in LA are happy to be just relaxed. They're happy to be with their family, and you see kids come over from South America come into the LA trials. You can see the difference and their hunger to want to achieve things, and because they have nothing to fall back on, and their family, their parents, their brothers and siblings, their brothers and sisters are relying on them to make it and them to make something of themselves to help them in the future. It's a completely different mentality, and I think that's when you see the likes of top athletes, the likes of LeBron, Kanye, the Stephen Bartlett, the all those kinds of people that are making it, is they've had to go out of their comfort zone. They've had to be uncomfortable, and they've had to risk something because they've had other people relying on them. we don't as so much have other people relying on us, but we have that mentality instilled in us that if we don't do it ourselves, no one's going to do it for us. So, yeah.
So how do we? Because I would say you and I are more privileged than most people would be
Yeah.
in a third world country. How does someone like us, or even more privileged than us, actually go about this? Because there will be people who have privilege who could actually make a better career in anything because of their privilege, but quite often it's people who are unprivileged end up making a better thing of it. But arguably, the person who is privileged and is the most hardworking and smart working would actually end up being the best at something because they have one. Like, for example, one reason why I'm not able to improve as much as other players maybe is because I can't have a private chef. I can't have a personal coach. I can't have a goalkeeper coach. But the people who do have that, and they're able to improve a lot quicker than me. But also the other thing is that quite often those people who have the money, they don't want to do the things that I'm doing. So how do we actually get that equilibrium for that person then with a lot of privilege to then actually excel in an area? Because quite often they don't even want it. So what do you think that looks like for people?
In regards to kind of removing the privilege out of the equation?
And seeking improvement when you got nothing to risk.
I think you have to ask yourself why you're doing it. For me, I know why I'm doing it, and it's that personal reason that I not only want to be able to provide for my family in the future, but also provide for my mum, my dad as well. But my mum's a big part of my life where I want to be able to retire her. I want to be able to buy her the house. I have a big thing on my screensaver on my phone, my wallpaper on my laptop. I posted a tweet about a year ago or 2 years ago saying I will buy my mom the house of her dream in 5 years' time. I know I will, and I think I don't know if you can change that mindset in people. It's a very hard thing because a lesson I've come to understand as well is that you can't change people. They have to want to change themselves. Yeah. And I've seen that in so many different equations of me trying to help people and help so-called change them, but they just don't want to, whether it's with their health, whether it's with their nutrition, whether it's with their finances, those kinds of things. You can't you physically can't change a person. They have to want to make that step for themselves. But the privilege, it is tough because I've seen even boys here, whether it's in the under 20s, in the club I'm at right now, they have a certain extent where they're living with their parents. They don't have to go fight for their life because they are living with their parents. They don't have to really go get a high paying job to be able to afford to live. So that hunger to be able to achieve something is different. Whereas if I go back to England, I know there's kids in my team that their parents are relying on them, but it's also such a harder place to live. Like if you're not earning, if you're not making money and you're not doing something, you are going to be on the streets. Like the government there aren't going to help you as much as they do here to be able to help you to live. Whereas, so you will see harder challenges in England because you will see harder tackles and people actually fighting for it. That's why the level is higher there. The standard of football is higher over there because people are actually trying to make it a lot more and they have something that they need to make it for.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to that privilege point, it's interesting because you mentioned it's the reason why you are working so hard, the reasons and the incentives that force you to act. For someone of a point of privilege, think about this. They don't want to buy their mum a house because mum's already got a dream house. They don't want to act because they want to, for us, we might want a nice car when we're older. Guess what? They got that car when they were 16. So whether we get that incentive to instill into others that they need to, let's say, achieve X, Y, and Z, to then achieve X, Y, and Z, what do they need to do to set out and to find that reason or that action point? So for me, similar to you, my action point and my incentive is very similar to you, and I think that there's no coincidence that you and I met either, and it's the exact same reason why I met your brother, right? I think that people who think alike will naturally meet each other, and I think that so I've got a very, very privileged friend, and he knows it, and he never wanted his privilege to define him. and I commend him a lot for it. And this actually used to happen a lot with me and your brother, bro. We used to crack up in the middle of the podcast. We'd just look at each other and we'd just start bursting out. And also, I'm going to include this because when I look back at this podcast in about, 6 years' time, and, I just have these random memories, we had to cut it out so many times. Me and your brother would just crack up out of nowhere and we'd lose our train of thought. It's so funny. And I just saw your smile in the corner of the camera. And I haven't laughed yet, but that was close. That was close. But anyways, yeah. So my friend, he knows that he's privileged, and he never wanted his privilege to define him. And I always thought that was very, very self-aware and very courageous that he actually was able to then say, I want to use it for good rather than take it for advantage, because a lot of people take it for advantage, right? So when it comes to that, how do we instill that incentive? It's honestly a tough one, and I can't say that I have the answer necessarily, but I think it's kind of what you were saying there, is that it has to be up to the person, because you can't change people. They have to want it. Because
I think it's through past experiences as well, like experiences, whether it's you've gone through or your parents have gone through, or childhood experiences. Because I've had a few, I don't know, maybe I've said them in a few years. Not necessarily now, but I've had a few experiences, whether it's with my parents or my family or things go on in my life where I've seen, and it's kind of maybe flipped a switch in me, or it's kind of built those traits up, whether it's about money, habits on like my finances, or whether it's about nutrition habits, because I've seen different things in my life. Or I think it's the experience you go through as well when you're younger, when you're in those phases of your life growing up, that kind of build it, and sometimes can help switch that mindset, or flip something in your mind to want to make that next step.
Yeah, it definitely instills an incentive into you from a young age. Like, for someone who's constantly worrying about whether their next meal is from a young age, they're probably going to continue that scarcity mentality. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. In the moment, it's not easy. It's not easy. But the people who can use that for a good thing, I think that those people are quite often the most successful. So it is tough, right? I think the people. So someone who I really enjoy their interviews with famous people is Patrick Bet-David. Do you know Patrick Bet-David?
No, maybe I would if I said.
I think you've probably seen some of his interviews, for example, with Kobe Bryant, with Tom Brady, with a lot of greats, and he talks individually about how he's able to instill these beliefs.
Yeah, I know who you're on about.
Yeah, and how he's able to instill these beliefs into his children. And it's tough because he literally lives next door to Messi. So he's bullying. And how does he then instill the same beliefs and work ethic into his kids that he has now? How do you do that? Because his kids are in a very privileged point.
I think Shaq's done it the best as well. Well, I don't know about the best because we don't know what these kids are going to turn out like, but he's done it where he said, like, you're not getting any trust fund or any money until you go to do your university degree, you go do this, and he set outlines to that. Maybe that creates that work ethic and the drive in their mentality, because they know they have to achieve something before they can get the reward. And I guess nice like that, you have to do the work before you see the success. For me, if I was to have kids and grow, like, kind of mentor them into something, would be just a learning phase as well. Would be like just reading and learning about so many different topics, where even if you think it's not valuable to you, it will be valuable in some way, some aspect, whether it's a conversation you have with someone and they're talking about something and you're like, oh, I've read about that, I can go deeper into that conversation, and maybe that will take me somewhere, or it's actually helping you in a business sense or a sports sense or whatever. I think learning is such a key part. So maybe teaching the kids about reading and those things, and teaching them things they wouldn't necessarily learn in school. I think another part is not giving them too much growing up. I think when you spoil your kids and you give them a lot, even though I would say I was a lot more spoiled and a lot more taken care of by my parents than the average kid would be. I don't know, that mindset for me, I just never really wanted to take things from my parents and even still today, I'm still young. I'm still 18. Like my dad and mom still want to give me money. I never accept it. I'm never asking them for money and I've been doing that since I was 50. I'd say even, I'd probably say like as long as I can remember, I've never really wanted to take. So obviously I take them. Yeah, I've never wanted to take their money. And obviously when I was like 11 to probably like 15, I wasn't making any money. I wasn't doing any business. I didn't have any success in business, or I wasn't even really having a job until I was at Cardiff City. So until I was at Cardiff City, I would obviously take a little bit of money here and there because I had to be able to buy things, as we all do when we're kids, for our parents. But from there, when I started making money myself, I was living off of that. I wasn't trying to take their money because I hate taking my parents' money and doing that way. I want to try and make something of myself and grow my business, grow it all off the back of me or working with other people. I think that mentality of not trying to live off of your parents is the big aspect that I forgot his name, Patrick David. I think with his kid, if he was to give them everything, then they're relying on that. They're just going to go get some corporate job or whatever it is. They might create a business, but at the end of the day, it won't be anywhere successful as what he's done because they won't have those skills built into them.
100%. And I think it's when you get things handed to you, you start to take them for advantage because humans are very adaptable, right? If I was to go, like, for example, for yourself, if you compare yourself to, like, if I was to take a fish from outside of, like, my area on the beach right now, just some random, like, cod or something, and put it in Perth, in 2 weeks, it sounds stupid, but in 2 weeks, that cod might die because of the temperature, right? Humans aren't like that. We're very.
That was nearly me yesterday.
But you didn't die, so that's where humans are unique. And yeah, you almost did, but humans are unique, right? We're very adaptable, so you can go from one place to another and adapt to it very quickly. Now, you could argue, okay, maybe a cod would also survive in Perth, but it's going to take a longer to adapt. Humans are very adaptable. Now, when it comes to taking things for advantage, we talk about acclimatizing to a specific thing. And that's not just the weather in times, and although you're probably getting there now, it also happens with, you hear it in people who get money quick and then lose money quick, and then they start thinking, oh, I need to get all that money back because I was acclimatized to living in a certain standard. And when it comes to leeching off your parents or whatever it is, typically it will be leeching off your parents, but I know that you didn't do that, and I never liked doing it either. And I think that it's also additionally a source of accountability because your results are your fault. Everything is, it's a very one-to-one relationship. You mess up, you find out straight away. Where if you have a safety barrier with your parents giving you money, if I was to spend $200 on groceries for 3 days, guess what? I'm not eating food for the rest of the week. But if my parents were paying me $700 a week for groceries, I've still got $500 left for the rest of the days. But that safety barrier isn't necessarily a good thing because if you get acclimatized to spending $200 for 3 days or so, then you're going to be stuck there because we adapt quickly. And then as soon as that's taken away, sure, you will adapt quickly, but guess what? You've also got no money for the rest of it. So when it comes to that, actually, how does the saying "your results, your fault" relate in your life? Like, where do you see a direct correlation between?
I was just smiling and laughing there because of how true that is. Because I've seen so many people, whether it's close to me, or just people in general. I've seen so many people go through that and they're living to a certain lifestyle and being fed by their parents or getting money from their parents, and they think they can just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. And they realize they actually have to get a job. They actually have to go work. They have to put in the hours. So it's just, I think the word or the kind of saying is the feedback loop you're kind of looking for, because if you have that feedback loop of you spending your own money, you seeing the result in, so if I was to go spend my own money now in my own business and I was going to put it on one ads and let's say I had £1,000, I would put £1,000 on one ads and I only generated £100 in profit from those, or £100 in revenue from those ads, then I've had a feedback loop of a £900 loss there. I know what did work and what didn't work. So I realized the next time, okay, I need to figure out something. I need to see what worked in those, and then the next time I can work and see, okay, I might lose £500 instead of 900. You know what I mean? So you can see that kind of feedback loop instantly. Whereas if you're using someone else's money, you're not going to put as much effort into to seeing what worked and what didn't work. You might just go, okay, I lost £100. Let me just try it again, and try it again, and try it again. Um, so I think when it's your own money or your own time that you're putting into something, you actually care a lot more about it. So caring about the work you're doing is the vital part of that.
Yeah.
Do you think the same?
100%. And I like that, how you care more about your money. And
Yeah.
this is an interesting thing, and a dilemma that I am thinking more and more about. So a dilemma that I'm thinking that I will face in the next few months will be with the SCULPTED app and the investment that I get there. We're looking for a fair chunk of investment, and if we get that, then I've got a lot of money that I'm responsible for and putting it in the right place. Now, I do think that I am pretty frugal, and I'm pretty I'd say I'm a cheapskate at times, but maybe not a cheapskate, but I'm frugal with my money. I'm not going to go spending money here and there. And I think that that's also due to a few things that I haven't disclosed in this podcast directly, because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But I've told Liam about how I am owed money, and these things make me frugal with my money because I don't have that money to spend.
Well, you don't know when the next money's coming in. That's the problem.
Exactly.
If people are missing payments.
Yeah. So, yeah, when I get this investment with the SCULPTED app, well, that's a delayed sense of reward, essentially, because I get, let's say, $300,000 to play around with. Well, guess what? I better make the best out of those $300,000 to play around with, because if I spend 50,000 on an advert that gives me nothing in return, well, guess what? I can't get that 50,000 back. And maybe we needed that 50,000 for a lawsuit or to license something. And guess what? I can't get any more money. And the only way I can get more money is, okay, potentially by giving up more equity, which means in the long run, I give up 5% equity, which could equate to $50,000 now. But in the future, 10 years down the line, that's just cost me 20 million because of a poor mistake that I've made now. So when it comes to that aspect, your results are your fault, but it's so long down in the future that it's going to be a tough position to get you out of. Now, let's talk a little bit more about dealing with this uncomfort, because personally, I gave you a brief story about the uncomfort that I faced alone in Germany. Now, I have many, many stories that I faced a lot of uncomfort in. How did I deal with it? We'll get into it. But Liam, have you got any stories that you could go into with specifically dealing with uncomfortable moments?
Yeah, so going back to the kind of Cardiff City one, that story I know we spoke about briefly, but when I was in Cardiff City, I was living in the digs at the time, living with that family. It was I'd say the worst part of Cardiff that we're living in, and I remember me walking on the way to the gym. We just finished training, so we were training at the days doing long sessions. So Tuesday and Thursday were double, triple sessions. So we'd go training in the day. We train in the morning, go to the gym, train again, and then we'd get driven home on the bus. We'd get back on like 5. So we'd be dead. I'd be then walking to the gym through this park, and I'm there thinking, right, I've just been told that there was a stabbing in this park the day before, and I'm there walking through it. In my mind, I'm thinking, firstly, what am I doing? Secondly, I also need to get my gym session done. So the discomfort of me, do I just take a different route and go down a different route because of this thing that's happened the day before? Or do I just deal with the discomfort and just like kind of sprint through one way and try to get to the gym as quick as possible? And it's, keep in mind, you're in Wales. I was going to say England, but Wales. And it's getting dark by like 4 or 5 p.m. as well. So you're constantly checking the shoulders. So I think trying to deal with that is a whole different aspect, because that's not money or your time or anything like that. That's your life. So that's kind of serious. Yeah. So I think as well with yours, where it's you're on the street at the end of the day, you never know what could happen to you if you're living on the street, and you have to find a place to stay because you don't feel comfortable. So that time for me in the Cardiff City block when I was there was always something I was worried about. Go to the gym, and then I never really knew about Cardiff. I'd never been to even Wales before going to when I moved there, so I didn't know what the good areas were, what the bad areas were. But and when I heard that story, and I realized I wake up the next day and there's a car that's been broken into right outside my house. It's a police person's car as well, and I've seen that, and I've looked out the window and I've seen that. I'm thinking, all right, am I safe where I'm living? So it's to realize, is it comfortable? How do I overcome the discomfort? Is a decision you have to make based off of the evidence that you have at the time as well. So for me, when I left Cardiff City, I made that decision based that I didn't feel comfortable in the aspects of my life and the safety aspect. I didn't feel that I had that, so I ended up moving back home, and that's where I then progressed even further because I had that sense of
security,
security. That's the word, safety and security. And I then made my obviously professional debut in football, and it went from there.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the circumstance in the moment, it's very tough. I can give you many crazy. I think that I've probably got some stories that will shock people, and I want to go through. I'm not going to actually say them right now because I want to play a game with you. It's going to be 2 truths, 1 lie. But when it comes to thinking about in the moment, how do we deal with uncertainty? Now, again, I'm not going to give you these stories because this is for 2 truths, 1 lie. And also, I'd encourage you to start thinking of your 2 truths and 1 lie now, if you can, just because it takes a second to think about them. But I've already got mine loaded. So
what are these going to be about? So what they're about?
It's going to be about uncomfortable moments. Any uncomfortable moments. It could be the first time that you went into a house with people you've never met. It could be going on a flight for the first time. Anything like that. Anything uncomfortable.
Shouldn't it be 2 lies, 1 truth though?
No, I go 2 truths, 1 lie. That's it makes it easier for the other person to guess the lie.
Okay.
Start thinking about it. But going into about the moment, something that I've always tried to do when it comes to being in a difficult situation in the moment is thinking about all the hypotheticals. So one example that I'll talk about in my 2 truths, 1 lie, which obviously is going to be a truth. You start looking for, okay, can I be here? Let's say the worst case scenario happens. I can go there. I can make it okay. I probably won't die. It'll be uncomfortable, but it's also better than dying. Therefore, I'll make it as good as possible, and I'll sacrifice a good night's sleep, even though I've got a trial tomorrow. But it's also better than dying because I won't make the trial tomorrow. So you start creating all these hypothetical situations where it's, well, this is better than that. Let's say that happens, then I've got another option that I'm thinking of. And starting to create all these different hypothetical options makes that uncomfort more bearable, because the thing that is painful about uncomfort is not knowing what's next. So when you start creating all these hypothetical situations of what could be next, it gives you a sense of comfort in the moment. Even though you're going to be uncomfortable, having a sense of security in your mind will at least make that situation more bearable in that uncomfort. And I think that's a very important thing for people who are thinking about all these uncomfortable moments. Like, for example, Liam coming over to Australia is going to be uncomfortable, but guess what? Worst case scenario, he just goes back to England. Now it's more comfortable to make. Now you could argue, okay, well, he spent all his money on a ticket, maybe he can't afford it back. Okay, worst case scenario, Liam now has to earn a bit of money in Perth, but Liam also can do that because Liam also wouldn't be making that decision to go over to Perth in the first place without knowing that he can make money whilst he's over in Perth to then get a ticket back. And that's where you have to plan it meticulously to make sure that you are making the right decision so that the worst case scenario, if it happens, you can actually deal with it. And there are obviously going to be situations where you make that decision without thinking of the worst case scenario, but You got to be okay with that when it comes to reality. And it may never come to reality, but you have to be okay with it and rationalize it in the moment. Does that make sense to you, Liam?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's seeing the other side of it, where if you make the decision, what the outcome could be, and what's the worst that could happen. Because that was my mentality going to this move over the past 2 weeks, was what's the worst that could happen. I've booked a return flight. I've booked a return ticket anyway. It's in like June or whatever. I can change it to earlier, pay like a few £100 or whatever, and go back right now. I lose a flight's money. What's the worst that could happen? That was just what I was thinking, and that is the worst that could happen. I just lose the flight money. But the best thing happening, I could play every single game here. I could build my men's football experience. I could get goals, get seen by A-League teams, build my men's football experience to go back to England, and then maybe potentially go back to Bournemouth, tell the manager, look, I've got my game experience now. Can I play? Or get some more game time, see what I'm like. Go to other National League teams, League Two teams, whatever it is. I get more opportunities now because I have more men's football experience. Or go even overseas again, somewhere like America or somewhere like that. So there's two different outcomes, the worst and the best, and seeing either side and weighing it up can be a good way to go.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from this, definitely. Going into 2 truths, 1 lie though now. Have you got something in mind?
Not really, but you go first.
I'll hit first. All right. So, obviously sticking on the theme of discomfort, I'll start off with, I got some crazy stories. Okay. There was a time in Germany where I actually had $2 left in my account, and unfortunately, the Uber that I ordered cancelled, and this was to get me to the next hotel that I was staying at.
Go on. Sorry.
Additionally, that Uber cancelled. It was 11 p.m. at night. Then I didn't make it to the next city. It wasn't too far. I then had to walk for 2 hours to the next city to make my hotel. It was about, I think, 15
miles.
kilometers.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, 15 kilometers or so. I can't remember, but that sounds about right. And thankfully, in Germany, the cities aren't too far away. I was just on the outskirts of one. And I ended up making it to this hotel at around like 4 a.m. because I also tried a few other methods, like a bus and whatnot, to get to the next city. But I was in the town outside of the city, essentially. So that's my first story. And also, once I go through all of my stories, you can ask me questions so that you can get more of an understanding of the situation as well.
That's definitely a lie, isn't it? Like, you're definitely not telling the truth. Like, it's definitely not a good story.
Next story. Okay. I was in Frankfurt, and similar to you, not knowing anything about Cardiff, I knew nothing about Frankfurt. Now, Frankfurt is the most densely populated area in Germany for crime. Now, I didn't know that outside of the Hauptbahnhof, which is the train station, is an alleyway or a suburb where it's essentially the red light district of Frankfurt. And it's lined either side with things that would be in a red light district. Now, weirdly enough, there was one hotel in this red light district, and it was the cheapest hotel. So obviously, I booked my time to stay in this hotel whilst I was with Eintracht Frankfurt. So I was there for about a week in this hotel. Now, I get into the hotel, I get my keys, go up to my room, and I open my door to my room, which is also the smallest room. It's like a window. Like, imagine the window for the room is like this. And so I'm like on a triangle shape area of
yeah, like an attic. Yeah, you get those
stitched up. I got stitched up with the room because obviously it was the last room and it was so cheap. I opened it up. There's a guy in there. He's having a smoke. And that's my room. I then go downstairs and say, hello, what's happening? And they say, oh, it's fine, we'll get him out. I then put my bags in after he's left. I go back downstairs and I say, have you got another room? I'll pay extra. They say, yeah, sure, okay, we'll get you another room. I paid extra. Go back into my room. Guess who's in my room?
The guy.
Old mate still having a smoke. I then go to my room. Thankfully, it's all good. But in the following days, I wake up to police sirens outside of my room, like downstairs in the street. And turns out there's a gunman on the loose. And there's a whole brigade of police going into all of the red light district areas. I don't want to say it because it might get flagged on YouTube, but you get the point. And then about 40 minutes later, by the time I need to go to training for the trial, I'm stressing out because this is like my third day of training with Eintracht Frankfurt. And I'm like about to make a call to the coach saying, sorry, boss, I can't make it because there's a guy with like a gun in my street. Crazy. Thankfully, they caught him. I run to training and I thankfully make it on time. That's the second story. Okay. The third story is similar to the first story, but at a different time. And I was in the city where I ended up living. And I legitimately had no money left in my account to book a hotel for this night. I had enough in my Australian account, but I couldn't transfer it over because I didn't want to lose like $200 from the transfer fee because I was doing it at such a ridiculous time. And I was transferring quite a bit of money. And I didn't know, it just got so complicated. And I was waiting because my club, who I was trialing with, were meant to pay for my hotel as well. So I didn't know where I was going to stay. This is at midnight. So I'm waiting to then get paid from my boss, who doesn't pay me. He literally turns his service off. I can't call this guy, and I need my money to pay for this hotel. I'm then sussing out places on the street. I'm looking here and there, trying to find a good place. Okay, that bridge is safe. I've seen people sleep under it before. We could share a bed. No, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. But I was looking all these places where I could sleep for that night because I had no money in my account. And I wasn't planning on transferring my money either. I needed a good night's sleep because the next morning I had a trial with the team who I ended up signing for. Those are my three stories, Liam. Ask as many questions as you like.
I won't ask any questions, but I will say, third one sounds kind of legit because I know you didn't get paid by your boss, so I know what that is, but I don't know if the whole story is legit. So maybe just put that in there to throw me off. I don't know. The second one, I think the first one definitely is legit. The second one, I don't know. I'm sure about that. I don't know if you book. I feel like you're risky enough to book a hotel there, but I don't know if you.
Ask questions if you want.
I don't know. I don't really have any questions. When was the Where did you end up staying after the third one?
After the third one, I ended up staying in the hotel that I was in a hotel reception at this time, and I was like trying to bargain with them. They said it was like 73 euros for the night, and I was like, I play for the club in this town, and I was trying to like work out some sort of deal. And I said, okay, crazy. And I can go on to. Do you think it's fake? Because I can go on a little bit more.
What, so it's real?
Well, I'm not saying. I mean, I could be just lying about this lie, or I could be lying about it, or I could be telling the truth about the story of what actually happened.
I'm saying number 3.
Number 3 is the lie?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 was the lie. That never happened.
No way.
Yeah. That was that. Not even close to the truth. That was like, normally when you like do one of these, you make up a lie that's close to the truth.
You did say 2 hours as well.
Yeah, that was just for dome. So
that only got far actually. I've done that though. I did was out an hour and a half the other day.
Oh yeah. Actually, I used to do it when I was after I recovered from surgery. I walked from East Putney to the London Eye.
Yeah, but London's London's different though, because London's like everyone walks in London. Like no. I told people where I walked to from here the other day. They're like you walked, and I was like, yeah, yeah, and they're like, right, like thinking I'm some idiot. Like,
everyone drives in Australia as well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I didn't have a car or anything, so it was a bit like,
yeah. All right. Have you got something on your mind?
No, because I'm just gonna create some bad story. I'm not giving you 3.
Go. Can you get 2 maybe?
What, a truth and a lie?
Yeah, a truth and a lie. You can also manipulate a truth into a lie. Like you could say, I had $20 left in my bank account, but actually it was 19, and that could be your lie.
Sorry, I froze a bit. I'm just trying to think. I don't have that many bad ones. That I do, but it's just, I think at this point, we'll keep that for later on.
Okay. All right.
We'll keep that for next step.
Okay. All right. Well, we are at the 1 hour mark, and my computer is also about to die. But I think, do you want to call it a wrap?
Yeah, sure. We'll do another one very soon though. So
yeah,
viewers, stay keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. Well, Liam, it was great to get another episode in with you. I hope that the viewers take something away from it. I think that I was saying for Liam before when we were thinking about what episode to do. I think if anyone's qualified to speak about these things, it's us two. And I'm not saying that in the grand scheme of things. I'm saying at our age, I think that we've gone through some crazy things. So I think that, yeah, it was awesome to get you on, because also out of all of my allies, you could say, I'd say that you're probably the person who I can relate to on the most about these crazy things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, allies? I don't know.
No, that's a Team Grover reference.
Okay. Yeah, I know. But it was sounds like you got a war.
Yeah, no, it's medieval. It is definitely medieval. I've spoken about it before, but yeah,
he does talk about the dark side, doesn't he?
Yeah. But it was again awesome to get you on, Liam, and we will hopefully get another one out very soon. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.